We're pleased that you're celebrating our 5th anniversary with us. You know, we've come a long way in the last 5 years. We have some correspondence which I would like to share with you at this time. One is from Governor Jim Edgar, and he says, as Governor of the State of Illinois, I want to welcome everyone to the 5th anniversary open house of the Chatham Area Library. Please accept my personal congratulations on this special occasion. Libraries play an important role in the growth and development of our children and are an important source of information for us all. I commend the hard work and dedication of the Chatham Area Library staff for their contributions to the community and the surrounding areas. On behalf of the citizens of Illinois, I extend best wishes. We had 2 letters from Paul Simons, Senator Paul Simons' staff, now his office. The first one, they said he was checking his schedule. The next letter came and said, I wanted to get back in touch with you concerning the invitation to Senator Paul Simon to attend the open house on November 17. It appears that other commitments will make it impossible for the senator to join you. He has asked me to convey his sincere regrets and his best wishes for a successful event. Your thoughtfulness in extending this kind of invitation is appreciated, and it's signed by Doris Brentz, one of his staff assistants. We were very, very pleased that they would take time and recognize that we had invited them. There are a few guests here that I would like for you to be aware of, and we would like to welcome especially. We have Bridget Lamont, and why don't you stand, Bridget?
Thank you.
She is the State of Illinois librarian. We're glad you could be here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
We have Gene Campbell and Paul Johnson and Fred Hicks. Those 3 are from the Rolling Prairie Library System from Decatur, and that is the system of which we are a part. And then Betty Hicks, Fred's wife, is here with him, and she is the librarian at the Hanson Engineering in Decatur too.
In Springfield.
In Springfield. So we're very glad that you folks came and joined us this afternoon. As I said, we've come a long way in the last 5 years. We started with less than 5,000 volumes. We now have a collection of about 22,000 volumes. We had very few patrons in the beginning. We now have almost 7,000 registered patrons. We started with a staff of 1 to a staff of 3 full-time, 4 part-time, and 2 part-time high school pages. We owe a big thank you to the Chatham Women's Club. They initiated the library, they nurtured it, they taught it to crawl, taught it to walk, and then we are now beginning to run. The Women's Club saw us through a completely volunteer staff, through 1 failed referendum, through a Project Plus grant, and a successful referendum so that we became tax supported. We want to recognize them for their dogged persistence and support. And to share these early experiences with us, Virginia Challis has come, who represents the Chatham Women's Club.
Well, we've come a long way, Gene, in 21 years, because it was about 21 years ago, June the 22nd, 1970, that the Women's Club of Chatham voted to establish a free public library in the old utility building, which has even been destroyed now, and on that location we pay our utilities now. It's a drive-up building. but it was a little old square concrete block building, and in some of these scrapbooks you can see a picture of it. At that time, the president of the Women's Club was Mrs. Willard Johnson, Berta Johnson. I think we had probably about 25 members at that time. Co-chairman of the library project was Iris Hughes, who's with us here today, and Norma Henson. I don't know if I believe she had something on and couldn't come, but we painted the walls of this old utility building. We installed new fluorescent lights. We had put in Venetian blinds and carpeting and got an air conditioner. We twisted the arms of our husbands to build shelving for the library, and then we ordered supplies to start the library. I know we ordered a catalog, and somebody donated a desk. We just got things wherever we could. But we put out a plea for used books to the community, and we had drop boxes in 7 businesses around Chatham. Some of those businesses you wouldn't even recognize the name. One of them surprised me. The New Look dress shop's been gone for a long time. But we worked about 5 months, I think, or 6. And we opened the library December the 29th, 1970, with mostly fiction books and a section especially for young children. We were striving to serve the adults who might not have a public library and the young children who were not in school. The city of Chatham, the trustees, supported us with some funds, and some of the township boards supported us with funds. And I think the Chatham board paid our utilities in that community, in that old concrete block building. We supported the library with many style shows, rummage sales, and a house tour at one time we had. We joined several children's book clubs and adult book clubs, so we'd have current literature, and we usually went once a year to one of the bookstores in Springfield, and we would buy $200 or $300 worth of books. And that sounds ridiculous, I know, in these days, but we were glad to have those. It was fun to go select those. During that time, the library was staffed by volunteers. We always took the calendar to a women's club meeting. But the area where we had the library was dark when you came out at night. We did have a light in front of that building. Sometimes it was cold, and it was lonely because we didn't have all the people coming in that you're having today. But right from the beginning, we were interested to see what help we could get. I saw in 1971, which was the following year, that we met with Miss Edwards of the Rolling Prairie Library System and a representative from the state library talked to us about forming a district library and how to secure Project Plus funds. We learned at that time that to get Project Plus funds, you needed to have an assessed valuation of the area that you were going to serve of $45 million. And in 1972, the Unit 5 school district that we were serving had an assessed valuation of, if I can read these figures correctly, $35,506,441. So we had about $10 million to go, but with a little time, we did it. January 1969, we had a lot of water problems in the building where we were. In the middle of winter, a ceiling pipe burst, and we lost about 200 books. Of course, a lot of those were given to us. We had to close then for 2 weeks. This building had all kinds of problems. And in February, we had water in the living room, in the first room, not the living room, I said, the first room, because the sill where you went in, apparently it had been frozen and buckled in the wintertime. So when the snow melted and it rained, that just rolled in that first room where we had our desk. And you could walk there with your boot, and you could see the water roll around your boot. And we often had some of our members come in with the wet vac to vacuum up the place. And after that ceiling for the pipe, after that water pipe burst in the back room, we had to clean and shampoo the carpets. In 1979, in October, we visited the Auburn Public Library. One of the first persons that put a little enthusiasm in us, I think, to try to work for a referendum was Shirley Marshall at that public library. And in October 1979, we met again with Rolling Prairies in Mayor Whitney's office, and they talked to us that they, under certain conditions, would provide a demonstration library. One of the things that we needed to do was to show the interest which would support a community library. So Sangamon State University, one of the mathematics professors, designed a survey of, and this seems a ridiculously small amount, 316 homes in Chatham to see if they would support a public library. And we actually visited those persons. That came out to 68.7 that favored support for a library. Then in November 1980, we actually started with the Rolling Prairie Library demonstration. And in December 1980, we filed the petition for a referendum for April 7th, 1981. Eric Carlson was our general chairman of this referendum. Jackie Clore, who's here, was our president at that time. And Marilyn Logan, who is also here, was in charge of the canvassers. We were a small club, but we had a lot of help from other people through the community. But the Women's Club paid for the publicity, for the flyers that we generated, and for the other things that were required for that referendum. But in spite of all our work, we lost by 21 votes. For a while, we thought we might have the referendum again in November, although I was trying to remember, I think maybe there were some school tax referendums about that time that gave us a little trouble. It was not feasible to repair that building, and it was not economically wise, I believe they said. So we decided to store our books, and all the books from Roaring Prairies that we had not yet returned, we sent back. So the books were stored for almost a year. Then in January 1982, we began the search for another building and the Women's Club decided that we would sponsor the library one more year, and we would strive to form a community library, because we felt like one of the reasons we lost the referendum was the lack of support, a wide enough support. It was, up to that time, it was the Women's Club library, and we wanted it to be a Chatham community library. The community center board provided a place that we could meet, and we used revenue sharing money to prepare that building with new carpeting and curtains and an air conditioner. And in July 1982, we sent a letter to all the service clubs in Chatham asking them to form a steering committee for a community library association. And that first meeting was held August the 4th, 1982. And the library opened then in August 10, 1982. And we've been open somewhere since then.
The interesting thing is that she told me a lot of things that I didn't remember about the library. But I'm going to tell her something. The old utility building that you were talking about, when I was a kid, it was the jail. Barb Germann is a former board member. She was on the board when it consisted of 17 members representing all of these organizations in Chatham that Virginia spoke of. They all appointed one person to a library board. She was on the board when it became 7 members to comply with the provisions of the Project Plus grant. And at the time of transition from an appointed board to an elected board, she was secretary at the time of our first election, and she guided us through that process and was most helpful. And I'd like for Barb to share a few memories with you.
In the fall of 1982, our school district had 2 grade schools, 2 K through 5 centers. Ball and Chatham were K through 5 centers. Linda Wolfberg was president of the Ball PTO, and I was president of the Chatham PTO. And Linda called me about every other week and said, "You've got to come to this steering committee for the library." Well, as you know, you get busy enough, and she did finally talk me into it. So in January of 1983, we had our first meeting, and it was organized by Donna McNeely of the Women's Club. And it was because the Women's Club wanted a Chatham Community Library Association, and they had worked to get these community representatives to turn the library over to. And there were 11 organizations represented. The Aid Association to Lutherans was represented by Max Wells. American Legion was represented by Gordon Pfeiffer. Linda was Ball PTO. The sorority Beta Sigma Phi was Marty Chapman. I was the Chatham PTO. Chatham JCs was Clint Ham. The Chatham Junior Women's Club was Billy Louthan, and the Kiwanis was Lloyd Day. The Rotary was Harry Bethke. Donna represented the Women's Club, and the HEA Nightlighters was Virginia Challis. Donna McNeely was so excited because she wanted to have 7 organizations there, and she got 11. And then she had 6 members at large. And so with that, we had the new Chatham Community Library Association. The 6 members at large were Linda Carter, Maureen Hunter, Darlene Moore, Jeannie Beard, Ann Martin, and Marla Krell. So that was 1983, and we took off from there. We were at the community building. If you've never been there, you walk in the front door and go to the right and just picture everything right there. We had books stored in the basement with termites and water. Our purpose, we had bylaws, and the purpose of the Chatham Community Library Association Incorporated was to promote library use and the development of library skills by the residents of Chatham through the establishment of a community library, and to control, conduct, manage, and maintain a community library for that purpose in Chatham for Ball Chatham School District residents. It was 1983, it went through 1984, it went through 1985. Revenue sharing money was supposed to support us, and revenue sharing money wasn't there. We would get Aid Association to Lutherans, we'd get $1,000 from them, we'd get $600 from JC's. Our balance when I started was $2,194.55. That was our whole budget. The rent for the community building for 1984 was $900. We paid our librarian in 1984 $2,100 for the whole year. Electricity cost $1,031 for the whole year. We spent $1,615 on publications, and that was a lot for us then. Supplies were $61. You can see what we spend now here. Printing and postage, $138, and our magazine subscriptions were $121. So 1984 went on, and 1985, I think it was 1986 that I was president of the Chatham Community Library. Was it 85? And Aid Association to Lutherans was represented by Rosie Weiser then, and we had called and tried to find out about grant monies, how you start a library building, and we weren't getting any place. And then Rochester got theirs, and so we knew it was out there, and we knew it could happen. And Rosie Weiser made the right phone call, and that's when we kind of we tried to talk some of these organizations into organizing and running this bond referendum, and nobody wanted to do it. So we knew it was gonna have to be us if it was gonna flow at all, and that's what we did, right? Oh, Phyllis and Rosie.
No, I was just sitting here thinking, the present board thinks we have troubles. I want you all to listen what the early ones went through. I knew that it was a 17-member board. I thought there were 17 organizations represented, but there were only 11.
Initially.
Phyllis Drury is a former board president, and she was active during the early time as we set up and began to function as a Project Plus library. And she's got some memories and some sharing about that time that she's going to share with us.
The way I got on the library board was we were moving here to Chatham, and we were not really necessarily Chatham. We were looking for a small town. There were some things we wanted. One was a library. Of course, the realtor said, there's a library in Chatham. So anything for a sale, and we moved here and we went to visit the library. And I remember Maxine was there sitting behind the desk, and we walked in and we thought, no, where else do we go? Well, that was it. And so in January, I looked in the newspaper and it said we needed another at-large member on the library board. And I thought, well, I think that'd be great to be on the library board and perhaps increase the number of hours we were open and the service that was given to the community. We did enjoy that little library, though, and it became kind of a home away from home for our children. The number of hours that it was open, though, was a concern of mine. I remember 4 days a week it was open from 2:30 to 5, one day from 12 to 5, and on Saturday from 10 to 12, and it was strictly run by volunteer staff at that time. Sometimes it was open, sometimes it wasn't. The total expenditure for 1984, just prior to my coming on the board, was $5,156. And as they have said, it basically came from township monies, which we truly appreciated, the village and local organizations. In 1985, that's when I became a board member, and Chuck Kerr did mention that Rochester applied for that grant, and we were real excited because we were trying to figure out any which way that we could generate more funds, give more service to the community. And Rosie did call, and on March 17th, I'm shocked that we had one on St. Patrick's Day, but it was March 17th, 1986, that we met with Sandy Haynes, who was then the representative from Rolling Prairie Library System. And she gave us a very thorough overview with recommendations on how to proceed with this project. And we were excited about that. We finally thought this was our key, that we could attain this. But there were some guidelines that, after looking back over these minutes, I don't know exactly how we did this, but we did. We knew that we had to, that if we would receive this grant, that the money would be funded to us for 1 year for the demonstration library, fully functioning, which meant, of course, for us, new building, all new equipment, new shelving, just everything, and plus a director, and we would have to establish the boundaries then that we wanted to be a part of this district. And then, if all of this came to pass, and the referendum would be successful the following year, then we could reapply for another Project Plus grant, which would give us one additional year until, in 1988, we would receive tax monies to fully finance the library. Well, we were so excited knowing that this was possible, and from Rolling Prairie we got such wonderful support that we just went in it with all our energies that we could. Then in April, when we had already written the grant, submitted it. Rosie, who we felt was the best thing going because she had found this opening for us, her family was going to be moving and she had to resign. And that's when I became chairman of the board. And anyway, we just went ahead, we voted, and Rolling Prairie did accept the grant in May. And at that time, we became known then as the Chatham Area Library District. It's funny looking back on this when you say kind of flippantly Chatham Area Library District. You can't imagine the number of hours it took just to do that one little thing. And each board member, of course, since there were only 7 of us now, we were used to working with 17, had a very specific responsibility, and we had a lot to do in very little time. And in August, I think we're kind of getting cold feet a little bit because when we first came to look at this space, it was not even this room, it was in the other room, and it was a dirt floor. And to try to, we didn't have a director yet, it was just we 7 who didn't have any experience in this, and we looked at it, we went, oh gosh, you know, I don't know if we are doing the right thing because we really didn't have money in hand yet, and yet we were getting ready to sign an agreement for rent. And but anyway, Harry Bethke reported to the committee about this building and about the sign and all. He was in charge of that area, and Chuck Kerr and I started the interview process for directors. And the standards were very high, we felt, and we were very hesitant thinking, can we really find somebody that we can attain a director with these qualifications? We had some very wonderful applications for this job, and it was God sent that Laura Burke was sent to us. Not only did she meet all the criteria with a master's in library science, she also had a master's in sociology and bachelor's degree in education. Not only did she come to us, she wanted the job. And after interviewing her, she fine-tuned us. She knew exactly what needed to be done. We kind of did the legwork, but she directed us totally and completely. Sharon and Barb, I remember, had fun going to pick out furniture, you know, and shelving, and Lucky was wonderful with the publicity, and Gene worked tirelessly on the grant and referendum process. Pat Kearns, who some of us may have forgotten, I had kind of forgotten what an instrumental part he played. He was an Eagle Scout, and for his project, he wanted to know if he could help us move the library. And sometimes, you know, when you get a volunteer to do things, you think, well, I might have to do it myself. But I tell you, he brought in his Boy Scout troop, and here we had this space. We finally had carpet, and this was like from April, and we had pinpointed December 6th as the grand opening, and he brought the group in, along with the JCs, helped on putting up shelving. And within one day, all the books were here. They put them on the shelves, maybe not in the right order, but they were there, and we could not believe it, and probably couldn't have done it without him. Anyway, we did have our grand opening on December 6th, and you would think then it'd be kind of a time to put your feet up, but immediately then we began preparing for the tax referendum, which was the total goal in establishing this district library. We needed to establish the exact district we wanted, and Gene Wilken and Bob Williamson helped tremendously there. And I was shocked even at these numbers. We had 16 zone captains and 138 canvassers. We wanted to truly cover the whole area because we had known of the one defeat by so slim a margin. Our problem was we had to pass totally in every area and with total numbers. But on April 7th, just 1 year after we initiated this, the referendum did pass. And we were operating on our own, and in 1988-89, then the tax monies were available. We're indebted to Rolling Prairie Library System, the state library, and past board members who worked diligently so we could and do still enjoy this fine facility. Thank you.
We've had a real good history this afternoon of our library, I feel. And one of our staff members has been here longer than we have. She's been here longer than the Chatham Area Library District. She was initially a volunteer, and then she was the first paid employee, was she not? And she's still with us today as a full-time staff member. Help me with your applause. Thank Maxine McCoy for her years of service. Has visited Lincoln Library several times for staff workshops, and they always recognize their employees who have served 5 years, 10 years, and so on and so forth. They give them a pin. Maxine has always asked stick around for another 5, maybe 10 years, we can give you a pin. As I say, we've had a chance to look at the last 5 years and even before that, where we have been. But a moving force cannot stand still. So we must look at where we're heading and how we plan to get there, where the next 5, 10, 15 years or more will find us. Gene Wilken, who you've heard mentioned before, was very instrumental in getting the tax referendum approved. He been the treasurer of the board forever, I think, and is a tremendous asset to us yet today on the board. He's going to help us look at the years since Project Plus and take us dreamingly into the future. Gene, can you get in?
Thank you for overstating the obvious quite a bit. But, I was thinking while you were talking back there, whomever was talking about meaning of community building, and everyone has their reasons for doing things, and a little known fact why I got involved in moving ahead with the referendum after attending 1 or 2 of those meetings at the community building was, if you didn't get there very, very early, you had to sit in the little kids' chairs. They were about that tall, and the table was about 18 inches tall. You sit there for about 2 hours hassling over what you're going to call the library district, and very quickly realize there's got to be a better way. So that's why probably a lot of us work so hard to make this come along as it has. So, it's very easy to, as all these people have mentioned this afternoon, to look back, and the past is crystal clear, particularly at this point. The future, unfortunately, is always a little more hazy. I've been on the board about 6 or 7 years or so, and seen a lot of changes that have occurred in even that short amount of time. Those of you that spoke about 20 and 21 years being here, of course, have seen many more changes than that. When I began on the board, I had a lot of misconceptions about the library, probably the biggest of which is that the most important thing about the library was its books. I figured that's the only thing that mattered in a library. Well, with the patience and extreme patience, I might add, of some of the library directors, they've convinced me over the years that there's much more to a library than books. Some of the more important things that a library offers to its patrons is the activities which were virtually impossible to hold previously. They're now able to be done in a reasonably good manner, but as anyone who is standing way in the back can attest, we possibly lack for a certain amount of space in this particular facility. Another very good activity that the library offers to its patrons is the ability to answer questions of the people that come in, whether it be a resource question, or where do I find this book, or do you even have this book, or where might I find it? I didn't realize all those things were so vital. I didn't realize they were so frequently asked. And as I've been on the board for a few years now, I've seen that that has become very, very vital. Also, obviously, as part of the books, though, that are important is people always want to see new, fresh books, particularly the more recent books. This is a matter of always having enough funds and also enough space to be able to provide them. And of course, many libraries get in a situation where for every new book that comes in, they have to take one off the shelf, which is a very unfortunate situation. So at this point, I believe that it would be an accurate statement to say that the library district is operating very financially soundly and is well positioned to maintain the status quo for a long time. But I think that at this point, and this is where it does become fuzzy, is that the library is at a crossroads in that it will be able to perform as it has performed the last few years quite nicely. But as the area we serve grows and as the requirements or even the demands of the taxpayers of the district grow, we are at a point where we are probably no longer able to provide those as well as what all of us that are close would like to see us handle those requirements. The taxpayers of this district, who are in fact the patrons of the library itself, of course, are the owners of this library. They're the ones that fund it, they own it, they have their say in how it's managed by election of trustees and the like. And it's to those people that the library has to be accountable. And I think that it goes without saying that the board and the library as a whole would be remiss if they didn't address this question of what are we going to do to handle the future needs. We're in a very thriving area, and we have to address what is the obvious, and that we started with 1,600 square feet, which was many times more than I imagine whatever the community building was. It was 800 feet or some such thing. I don't recall the exact numbers. We're now at 3,000 feet, and I am told that probably by the end of this year, we will be in a position where any new books that, by the end of this fiscal year, next June, any new books that come in will require us probably to start purging some of the other books that we otherwise would not have to. It's also become a situation in the summer. Some of the programs that we offer are needing to be split into 2 or 3 parts simply because the great interest that's been generated in these programs, which builds year after year, has required that we can't accommodate all of them. And so all of these things are starting to build up, of course, that to do the services that the library has been asked to do requires that we give a clear and thorough study of some facility needs outside of this particular location here. The library board has been spending quite a bit of time in the very preliminary phases of just how you go about doing that, because just as we were not familiar at the time of how you go through a state grant, none of us have really, or at least to my knowledge, been through a library building project before. So this too will be new to all of us. One thing that the board is intending to do is to be extremely open. There will be no secrets, and also it will be the intent of the trustees to involve just as many people as are interested in the entire project into determining, just how do we go about this and so on. The obvious thing here is that we do have a need for a larger facility. The less obvious thing is just how we would pay for this. And that's where a lot of it will come back to a lot of the hard work that will go into this. We will pursue any sort of state or federal grants that may be available. While that's been a very traditional way of funding a good portion of it, we aren't going to bank on getting that as a sure thing, given some of the indications we've heard of state finances and the like, although we certainly will do everything we can to come up with any grants that might be available. But the realistic picture, as all of us in this area know, is that state government is in some kind of difficult times, and this may be one thing that was more prevalent in the 70s and 80s than it is in the 90s. We will, of course, the board will always graciously accept any donations that any of the patrons or anyone else would wish to donate. And this is not a fundraising drive here, but there is a fund already established that was partially funded, I might add, through the Laura Burke Memorial Fund upon her passing the last few months. And in addition, the other obvious thing is that the only way that this will happen is by virtue of a tax referendum. That just should come as no surprise, because the library, as it is right now, has always taxed at its maximum rate, and it is fully utilizing all those funds and could not possibly pay for a new building out of the current tax level funds. In addition, portions of the district, while it's growing, any portion of the district that is annexed into the city of Springfield no longer becomes our district, or no longer supports our district. In fact, that converts to the Lincoln Library. And so we've had some trade-offs there as many areas convert to the city of Springfield, such as Panther Creek and the like. So all of these things add up to that. I don't think any of us on the board or any of the others that I've spoken with, to my knowledge, are looking at the idea of building a building just to have some great big monument around here anywhere, and to be able to point and say, look at what we did. Everyone that I know has been involved in this is looking at this as a necessary thing to be able to provide the services and the activities that the district has come to enjoy, and I believe also has come to expect. And to do anything short of fully investigating all the possibilities of a new facility, I think would not be prudent on the part of the board. So my hope is that when we meet here again, hopefully for the 10th anniversary, which, if my math is right, ought to be about another 5 years, that we ought to be in a new facility of which we could all be proud of, and that as a result of being in that we would be able to even better service the patrons of our district. So with that, I'll close. Thank you all for coming. Gene?
I think I said facetiously that he was going to look dreamingly into the future. I don't think there's going to be much dreaming. I think it's going to be hard work from here on. But thank you, Gene. I have been told that there are some people who want to make some presentations, and I'm not sure who they are and whether they're here. Linda, can you help us?
I want to insert Bob Williamson from the Friends
Okay,
first.
all right.
To talk a little bit about the Friends role in the library before this presentation.
Okay, this is a very vital part of our being. And the Friends is a big help to us. We have a very active Friends group, and when anything needs to be done, we need to move shelves or move books or anything else, we get on the phone, and there will be friends that will show up to help us through these things. The Friends are providing our refreshments this afternoon, so it's a vital group, and we just really appreciate all they've done. We appreciate them so much, I wasn't even going to let you talk. But that's fine. Bob, would you tell us what the Friends do for us? You are a past president of the Friends.
Past chairperson, yeah. Well, I had my talk already here, and after standing after the back of the room, I think I'm just going to change it. The Friends, I think we just ought to change the label of the Friends and call us the Little Elves. We started back in 1986, and we're organized over in the old building, over one of the side rooms, and at that time, Paula Christ was elected our chairperson. We had about 150 people, and that's where we started. And along with Gene Wilken and some of the others, we went door to door on the canvas for the library referendum, and it did pass. And I met a lot of interesting people in that door-to-door campaign. Maybe we ought to do it more often to see what's going on. One interesting thing is our job is twofold. Number one is to provide a service whenever the library or the board needs something done. We want to be available to do it. And one thing about Chatham, from my standing as chairperson, believe it or not, you can always get a volunteer to chair a committee. And number two, when you pick up the telephone to call somebody, they don't hem and haw, they say yes, when, and where. And it makes our job so much easier to get things done. Now, just like these orange chairs up here, why we're called elves is because the librarian every year since we got started always has a wish list. I mean, it's about that long, you know, and Santa can't do them all, so us elves get together. And these chairs, well, I noticed you've done real good today. These chairs came from a place where the people kept falling off the chairs. So they got back to Wiley's, I think, and we bought them just for a fraction of the cost. So that's one of the things the Friends do is, some of the stuff you see around the library was not purchased by the library. It wasn't purchased by the Friends. I guess you could say we scrounge things. Libraries, we get typewriters. I knew at my workplace we had a bunch of microfiche machines that weren't being used, and they went down and they looked through 30 of them and gave us the best one. So we've been able to help the library. I will say in my job, I now can put on my resume, if I go look for another job, if I want to go to a bookstore or something, we would be real good. I could put down there, excellent at rebuilding bookshelves, and put the books back on. I don't know how many times we've moved those bookshelves back there and reworked them and changed them, and but it's our organization is, we're just a supporting hand, and we would ask that every one of you in here, if you're not a member of the Friends, we'll take care of you today, and we need volunteers. We thought maybe in 1987, I think it was, the chairperson at that time, which was me, had the bright idea, well, I tell you what we'll do. Let's go out and let's make a service for homebound people. We had 20 friends that volunteered to take books out to the homebound. We had 2 requests. So this is just, this is the way the Friends work, and this is what we do. We enjoy what we're doing, or we do. A lot of us like to read, but a lot of us just like to be a service to the community. And we thank you all for all your support, and we look forward for your continued support. Thank you.
Before you leave today, I know that there is a little paper, yellow paper out there that you can follow the yellow dots. And you can see the number of things that have been purchased in this library by the Friends group. Their major fundraisers are the 2 book sales that they have each year. And anything that is made from the book sales is plowed back into the library in the form of purchases, things off of our wish list, which gets longer all the time. Now I think we're going to have some presentations.
Linda Davis of the Prairie Quilters is going to present a wall hanging that has been completed by the Prairie Quilters. Mary threw that book. Come on, Mary. You go ahead. Come on.
We have several of us here. And has supported the library several times throughout the years. Quilting, making a quilt for raffles. And we wanted to present this to the library to hang on the wall, and the library symbol in the books, because we truly do appreciate what the library does.
Oh, that is tremendous. I know we're going to find a special place for that. I sent some things to my son one time, and he said, it's going to have a special place, haven't found a special place yet. But we will find a special place.
Try it several places.
That is just gorgeous.
Joyce Jongeward.
Oh, Joyce. I'd like to say a word or two before Joyce gets up here. She has just worked hours and hours and hours on this project, and I know how many hours she's put in. She's looked through past issues of the JR and the Clarion, and I know how many hours you've put in.
Well, these books are meant to tell a story of the Chatham Library, starting with the little white building on East Mulberry and a group of very determined women who were going to have a library in Chatham. As I present these to the library, I present to you the opportunity to go through these books and follow the pathway to a dream.
Thank you. Copies of articles, there are pictures in here. That's just tremendous work and a lot of time and effort, really dedicated. We will have these here for you to look through later on today. I can't thank you enough for being a part of our 5 years in the community as a Chatham area library and 21 years as a struggling library before that. And I would like for Linda to come up and have us a word and close us off for this afternoon.
I've enjoyed my 4 years with the library. I've enjoyed working with each of the boards, members, and the changing boards. I've enjoyed working with friends. I've enjoyed working with Rolling Prairie. Mostly I've enjoyed the tremendous support of the Chatham community and of our patrons. We see about 150 of you a day at this point. We are thrilled to have so many people using the library. Everything that's happening in Chatham, the growth, is happening here in the library as well, and it's really fun to be a part of. I want to invite you now to join us for cake and coffee, to take a look around. The scrapbooks will be out on the table. There are also some photo albums. I'll mention again that Mark will have some tapes available if you would like them. And with that, we'll close. I especially thank Gene for persevering today, despite me not feeling well.
Have fun.